Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It is me, Allie. In today's video, I thought that I would share with you my birth experience. So I thought that I would give you my birth story from when I started getting contractions all the way until I was discharged and made it home. If that is something that you are interested in, please stick around. I thought that I would do a twofer, so while I'm sharing with you my story time, I would also do a get ready with me and show you how I cover up all of my adult acne and my redness and my rosacea. So if you have any other questions or concerns after watching this video, just ask them in the comments below. And without further ado, let's get on into it. So my story is going to start on April 29th at about 10:30 p.m. That is when I started feeling my very first contractions. Contractions, guys. Let's talk about contractions. They're really painful. I'm not gonna lie to you. If you are pregnant and you are looking for someone to be real with you, I'm going to be real with you. Contractions are very, very painful. So in my third trimester, I started getting the Braxton Hicks. And I actually went to the doctors once because I thought that I was going into labor, because Braxton Hicks are very, very uncomfortable. If you're unfamiliar with what Braxton Hicks are, they're like a milder form of contraction. So I ended up going to my midwife and she checked me out. I wasn't dilated and she was like, "You're probably just experiencing Braxton Hicks." And I thought that those were really, really painful. So I kind of approached her and was like, "Well, how do I know if I'm actually in labor then? Because I think that these are contractions." And she's like, "When you have contractions, you will know." And I was like, "Again, I think that these are contractions, so how do I know?" And she was like, "Trust me, when you have a contraction, you will know." She was right. When I had those contractions, I knew. It was nothing like I'd ever felt before. Every single person is different, so you can't go just off of me. My experience with contractions, they were so painful. But some people feel contractions and they're like, "Oh, it wasn't bad at all." Me, absolutely never want to feel those again until I absolutely have to when we decide to have more kids. So contractions, to put it lightly, it kind of felt like somebody was taking a knife and just like stabbing me repeatedly. Again, I want this to be real and raw. I don't want to sugarcoat anything. This is just my experience. They were really painful, but they did come and go. So it wasn't just like this constant flow of pain. It was just like, it was painful, but wasn't like a constant flow of pain. So our doctor had advised us not to call until they were 5 minutes apart. At about 10:30-ish, I was getting them about 5 minutes apart. Then the next one would be like 12 minutes apart. The next one would be like 7 minutes apart. So they were very, very sporadic. I then decided to sit down for a while and just hang out with Adam and just try to like do breathing mechanisms because they were really, really painful. So I started getting them like 7 minutes apart. And Adam apparently is a rule follower. He's never been like this before, but he was like, "We can't call until they're 7 minutes apart." And I never, ever yell at Adam, ever. Like, we have a very good relationship. We talk very kindly to each other. We have a good marriage. At this point, he was like, "I can't call yet because they're only like 7 minutes apart." And I was like, "Then effing lie to them. Call them up and tell them that they're 5 minutes apart." And he was like, "All right, I'm gonna call them." So we ended up calling our midwife and he was like, "My wife is in a lot of pain. She's not getting the contractions like every 5 minutes, but she's just in a lot of pain and I don't really know what to do." So at that point they were like, "Just tell her to come in. Have her come into the hospital and we'll see if she's ready to start the whole delivery process." So at that point we got into the car. I think this was closer to like 11:30, 12 o'clock-ish now. We end up finally getting to the hospital. Thank goodness. We get to the hospital and first and foremost, I went to Women and Infants. It was the best experience ever. The best experience. We already said that we're writing them like a million letters, sending them a million pictures of Landon. They were so kind, so comforting, so understanding, and they just put your needs first. Like, I can't say enough good things about them, but right when we got in, I was feeling my contractions and you're obviously not in a good place. Your mind is racing, you're about to have a baby. I'm a first-time mom, so I had no idea what to expect. We get there, and side note, Adam has come to every single one of our appointments. We've always done this together. We get there and the nurse is like, "I'm gonna take you into the examination room." So Adam starts coming with me and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, he can't come in for this one." And that's the one that I wanted him in at the most because I was getting contractions and I was in so much pain. So he just sat in the waiting room. They took me into the examination room, contractions like every 5 minutes, and they ask you a bunch of questions there. So that's kind of when they sit you down and like, do you feel safe at home? Is anybody beating you at home? Do you feel nervous to take a baby home? Blah, blah, blah. They do your blood pressure, your oxygen. They just do like all of your vitals. So I'm going through contractions at this point, and she's asking me these questions, and I'm like clenching up. She's like, oh, you're having a contraction. I'll wait until you're done. Don't worry, you can answer after. I was like, oh my goodness. So eventually, that was only like 10 minutes. She was like, yep, you're having your contractions. They're close enough together that you can go into the triage, which is, I think it's emergency room. That's where they monitor you for a little bit before you go into the delivery room. So at that point, they put in a request to get me into the delivery room. And then that's when they just kind of monitor you. So they had me on a bed. I had to get down naked. They checked everything. They checked to see if I was dilated. Again, they checked my vitals. This is where I was getting really bad contractions. This is where they were coming like every like 3 to 4 minutes. Maybe not. Maybe it was like 5 to 7. I don't really remember. That part is a blur. I was probably in the triage room for about, I don't know. I want to say I was in the triage room for about an hour until my delivery room was ready. Can't find the cap for this. Here it is, sorry. So I was in that for about an hour, and they were just asking me like all the questions, like, do you feel like your water is break? Did you feel like your water broke at home? Etc., etc. So at this point, they finally had my delivery room ready. I was so ready for that epidural. So ready for that epidural. Like nothing sounded better to me. Nothing at all sounded better to me. And this is where they ask you like, do you want to get the epidural? So we go up, and within like 2 minutes of being in the delivery room, they asked me again, do you want to get the epidural? I had to sign some paperwork. I had to like give my consent, and then they gave me the epidural. And oh my goodness, like I can't even explain how awesome epidurals are. I am so pro epidural. Like at first, in the beginning of my pregnancy, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to get epidural. I want to do it natural. And if you're the type of person who has done it natural, stand up and give yourself a round of applause. I commend you so much. I couldn't do it. And you know, it wasn't part of my plan at that point. At that point, I was like, give me the epidural. I want to feel it. So they put the epidural in me. Within 2 minutes, I did not feel a thing, nothing. It was kind of weird and kind of scary how numb I was from like my belly button down, but it was fantastic. In the delivery room, it was Adam and my mother, and we basically just got there. I want to say it was like 1 o'clock in the morning at this point, or maybe 1:30. And they checked my contractions. They had me all hooked up to everything, and they had mentioned like your contractions are close enough, but they're not close enough to go into like actual delivery yet. So why don't you just like take a nap? So I ended up napping from like 1 o'clock in the morning until about 9 o'clock the next morning. On and off. I remember waking up and like looking around, and Adam was talking to my mom and then falling back asleep, waking up, falling back asleep. It was kind of like a little routine of that for like 7-8 hours, however long it was. At that point when I woke up, I was just chilling with my parents, with my mom, excuse me, and with Adam for a little bit. And then within another hour, that's when I actually went into labor. That's when I actually started to push. So when I woke up, they were asking me like, how are you feeling? Is the epidural working? Is it kind of wearing off? They give you like this button. I don't know if all hospitals do this, but they give you this button and you can press it. So if your epidural starts to wear off and you start to feel the pain again, you can just press this button. And they say you can press it so many times in an hour span. I only pressed it twice for the whole entire like 12 or 13 hours that I was in active labor. So that wasn't that bad. It started to wear off and I started to feel the cramps again. I pressed the button, it kind of like went back into my system a little bit more, and then I was fine. I don't know, I just stopped talking to do that. So at this point I was just awake and I was really alert at this point. Thank goodness that I was able to take that nap, because I don't know if I would have been able to do it without that nap. Pushing is exhausting, and I only pushed for about 2.5 hours, 2 hours and 40 minutes to be exact. I can't even imagine people who have to push for like 5-6 hours. I've talked to people who pushed for like 10 hours straight. You're the real MVP. Because I only pushed for 2 hours and 40 minutes and I was beyond exhausted. So at this point I was just sitting with my parents, I keep saying my parents, my dad was not in the room with me. I was sitting with Adam and my mom, we were chatting. I was so dehydrated. That is one thing I really have to let everybody know. You get so dehydrated. And I thought from like movies and stuff, you could only ever have like ice chips or stuff like that, or you could just do like very bare minimum water. That wasn't true. They actually said I could have anything clear, so I could have clear liquids, I could have Jello, I could have a popsicle. So she offered me a popsicle and I had like one of those like little twin pops. It was really, really good. I hadn't had one of those in so long, and it kind of just like quenched me until I actually started pushing. So at this point, I think it was 10 o'clock exactly. It was exactly 10 o'clock. My nurse came in and my midwife came in, and she was like, we're ready to have a baby. We're gonna start pushing. And shockingly, like, I wasn't nervous at all. I really wasn't nervous at all for the whole pushing portion of it. I wasn't nervous for the whole labor portion of it. A lot of people ask me that, like, are you petrified of going to the hospital? And I was like, I'm really not. Like, I'm ready, I'm excited, like, I want it to be here. I just want to meet my daughter and my son. Side note, if you haven't been watching my channel for a while, we did not find out the gender of our baby. So it was a big surprise. And I think at that point, I was just so ready to know if we were gonna have a little daughter or a little son. At that point, when I started to push, the midwife had asked, like, what is your plan for finding out if it's a boy or a girl? Do you want us to tell you? Do you want to look down yourself? Do you want your husband to tell you? And at that point I said, like, you know what? I really think that I want Adam to tell me. Like, that just seems the most fitting. I want him to be the one to say, it's a boy or it's a girl. So they went over that together and they're like, all right, we'll let your husband look down and then we'll let your husband tell you whether you had a boy or a girl. I was like, that seems perfect to me. So I started pushing and it wasn't that bad. You have to push during your contractions. I didn't know that. I thought that you just push like continuously. You don't. You only push when you get a contraction. So if my contractions were 5 minutes apart, I would get a contraction for like 30 seconds. I would push for, I think they had me count to 10. Every time I push, I would count to 10. And then when your contraction is over, you kind of just chill out, you relax, you breathe a lot, and you just hang out with who's there. The best thing to do that they had mentioned to me was to keep your mind occupied. And let me tell you, this is like my favorite part of the entire, well, not my favorite part, but this is such a fun part. I had the chillest midwives ever, like the chillest midwives ever, and the chillest nurses. Now, I don't know how this even came up. I think one of the nurses came in, she had a scrub on, and it was all Disney. And I mentioned, like, I love your scrub. And one of the nurses like, oh my God, she's the queen of Disney. And my husband was like, you'll get along with my wife. She's the queen of Disney too. And then the other one had a picture of a dog on her name tag, and it was a pit bull. And we were like, we have a pit bull too. So no lie, I was pushing and I was like, you're really pushing. And with the epidural, everyone's like, well, what does it feel like? Because you don't feel anything with the epidural. You do feel something, you feel pressure. It's not pain, but you can feel yourself just like pushing. And I was like, how do I know how to push right now? Because I don't feel anything from the bottom down. And she was like, push like you have to take a really big poop. Like, remember when you have to take a really big poop, the way that you push, that's what I want you to do every single time you have a contraction. So that's what I did, and you just feel a lot of pressure. It wasn't pain for me personally, it was just a lot of pressure. Like, I remember just like squeezing, and I remember taking like my abdomen and trying to like push my abdomen out basically from underneath me. So I was pushing, and it was just so funny. I would push and I'd be like, nah, and then they're like, okay, breathe, and like, so what is your pit bull's name? Here's a picture of mine. Adam would take out his phone and show him our pit bull. It was so funny. How old is your pit bull? Blah, blah, blah. And then I would push again, and then you're like, all right, breathe. And then the other nurse is like, so what's your favorite resort? When are you going back again? Who's your favorite character? How often do you go? It went like that for a good hour. I would push, talk about a pit bull, push, talk about Disney, push, talk about a pit bull, push, talk about Disney. And it really made the time go by. So I think the number one thing I would suggest while you're in that whole entire realm, I think I need to go feed Landon. Okay, I'm gonna pause this for a second because Landon needs to nurse right now. If you can hear him in the background, he's with Adam right now, but Adam obviously can't feed him. So I'm gonna go nurse Landon, and then I will be right back to finish up the story. Okay, I am back. That took like a half hour. That was a very long feeding, but I am back. I don't really remember where I left off, but I'm pretty sure I was saying to occupy yourself while you are pushing. It was the best thing, talking about pit bulls, talking about Disney and other random things, because it really occupied my mind and it took the pressure off of A, try and have a baby, and B, just everything that goes along with trying to have a baby. So I pushed actively for 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I didn't really feel anything. Like I had mentioned, I really just felt pressure. I did feel it when we were actually ready to have my son or my daughter, which I already told you it's Landon. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that I had a boy. That's when I started to feel it. By the way, I'm looking in the mirror right now and this isn't looking great. I don't usually do my makeup in a viewfinder. I usually do it in a mirror. So if it's coming out a little wacky, that is why. I usually have like a mirror in front of me. That is neither here nor there. So I was actually pushing and just going off of what the midwife was saying. I did go to the midwives. I don't know if I mentioned that, but we went, I'm gonna put this here and try to look in this mirror. But we decided to go with the midwives over the doctors. It was our personal choice. We got to meet with both the doctors and the midwives, and we just really liked the midwives a lot. And I would 120% go back to the midwives when we decide to get pregnant again. We had just the best experience with them. They were so knowledgeable. They just made you feel amazing the entire time. They just never made you feel like, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Any question that we ever had, they had the answer for it within 2 seconds. So we had an awesome experience with the midwives. Nothing against the doctors. We didn't even meet with them, so I can't really speak on that half, but we had an awesome experience with the midwives. At this point, I was pushing like every 1 minute. So I was pushing for like 30 seconds, breathing. We weren't really talking at this point because they really wanted me just to be breathing. At this point, my son was ready to come out. So they said like one really big push, and they said that for like 10 minutes. So like big push. And I was crying at this point because you're just so overwhelmed and just so excited and so scared and so nervous and just so, I was so ready at that point. I just wanted to hold my son. The entire time that I was pregnant, all I wanted was skin to skin. I wanted a healthy, happy baby, and I wanted skin to skin. I wanted that baby on me, and I just wanted to hold my baby. I mean, you hold your baby inside of you for like 9 to 10 months. All I wanted was just to hold my son or my daughter on my chest. So I finally did that last push, and this is where you feel it. So at that point, the epidural like didn't wear off, but I felt it. Like I felt the pain of it, but I was happy to feel the pain of it. Like I wanted to feel that pain at that point, and I only felt it for like maybe 5 minutes, but it was the best pain I've ever felt in my entire life. Like I wanted to actually feel him come out, and it just, this is the only way I can explain it. It felt like a bloop. Like I just remember hearing bloop, and you just feel this release in your stomach. And then I looked down and I saw Landon come out. And this is like the craziest part. I was crying, like ugly crying everywhere, beautiful crying everywhere, like dry heaving crying, like I couldn't even catch my breath crying. I was just so elated. At this point, by the time he came out to me, and I had a vaginal birth, by the way. I'm sure you guys already understood that by this story. I didn't have a C-section, I had a vaginal birth. By the time he came out of me to the time that they put him on my chest had to be less than a second. They were so efficient. They took him right from outside of me, placed him on me. He was all like bloody and all of that. And it was the weirdest thing. It was like tunnel vision. All I could see was him on my chest. And I just said him again, but all I could see was him on my chest. And then there's just hands coming and cleaning him, sucking things out of his mouth, drying him off. Like I didn't even notice any of those people. All I noticed was Landon on my chest. I was crying, Adam was crying, my mom was crying. There were beautiful tears everywhere, happy tears everywhere. And this is where Adam was like, it's a boy. So if you guys have been following along on my pregnancy journey, I'm gonna try to do this. Oh my God, this side is so bad. I have such a tough time doing this side of my eye. 1 second. It's gonna be awful. That's not that bad. So if you guys have been following along on my pregnancy journey, I was so dead set on having a girl. Not saying I wanted a girl. I personally always wanted a boy first, so yay. But I just, inside of me, knew I was having a girl. Like it wasn't even a, oh my God, I messed that up so bad. Whatever. Nothing a little mascara can't fix. I was so dead set on having a girl. Adam was so dead set on having a girl. We just had this feeling inside of us that we were having a girl. And we didn't find out, obviously, but deep within our soul, we knew that we were having a girl. Everybody around us knew that we were having a girl. Anybody that we asked said, oh, you're having a girl. I don't know if it was the way I was holding or whatever it was, but anybody who talked to us was like, oh, she's definitely having a girl. Having a boy was the best surprise of my life. I'm not telling you how to do your pregnancy or whatever, but if you are willing to not find out, the best surprise in the entire world. Nothing can top that euphoric feeling. So like I had mentioned, I was just so dead set on having a girl. Adam was like, it's a boy. It didn't register because Landon was on me at this point, and I was just holding him and I was just soaking in every little last second. It took me a minute, and me and Adam talking about it all the time. Like, he said it to me, it's kind of like I didn't even hear him, I ignored him. Landon was on me, and then 2 seconds or maybe like even like 2 minutes later, I turned to him and I was like, it's a boy? We had a boy? And that was the best surprise ever, because if I did have a girl, I would have been just as happy. A healthy, happy baby is all we wanted. But if I had a girl, it really wouldn't have been a surprise, because in my mind, I always knew I was having a girl. So the fact that I had a boy, it was the surprise of a lifetime. Now, I cannot explain to you the feeling of actually getting to hold your baby for the very first time. It is this feeling of pure utopia. There's nothing that even compares. I replay it pretty much every single day in my head. Every single day I get that feeling and I just want to like well up with tears. It is the best feeling ever. I think that somebody needs to figure out how to like bottle that up and sell it, because they'll be trillionaires. There's no feeling that quite compares. Again, in my personal experience, in my personal opinion. So that was the beautiful part of it. I didn't think that labor was bad at all. I personally thought that it was really easy. It was not that it was fun, but it was like, it was really, really nice. What happened next was not fun, and it was not nice for me. I ended up hemorrhaging. I ended up hemorrhaging really bad. I think they say you're supposed to lose like 500 units or 500 something of blood, and I lost double. I lost 1,000. So that didn't happen until after Landon came out. Once Landon came out, that's when I started to bleed, and I bled a lot, like a lot. So my recovery was a little bit more difficult than most people's recovery. I had to be monitored a lot more. I had to go on iron pills. I was very dizzy after the recovery, which was really, really hard. It was very, very hard to just be like nauseous and dizzy and just feel like you don't have any control over your body, because all you want to do at this point is hold your child. And I really was having a tough time holding Landon, because every time I would hold him, if I wasn't in the hospital bed, I felt like I was gonna pass out, or I felt like I was gonna fall over. So obviously they don't want you holding the baby if you feel like you're going to pass out. I held him pretty much the entire time while I was lying down. One of the last nights that we were there, I was like, let's go for a walk. I cannot sit in this bed anymore. So they don't let you walk the baby anyways. You have to walk the baby in the pram. I think it's called the pram. They won't let you just like hold a baby and walk with them in the hallway. You have to, again, be in the pram. So it wasn't like I was holding Landon, but I was just holding onto the pram. The pram is like the little crib that they give you that the baby stays in. So I was walking, and I walked maybe like 10 feet, and I was like, I'm so off balance, and we had to go back. The next day, our midwife came in and she had told us like, you lost a lot of blood. They kept me in the hospital a little bit later, not a full another day, but several hours later. And I just started crying, because you're just so emotional and your hormones are just so all over the place. And all you want to do is just get home and start your life together. And then I found out that I had to stay in the hospital later. But you know what? We would rather like have been there and have everybody monitor us than go home and have something happen. So I ended up staying in the hospital a little bit later than expected. They monitored me, they checked all my blood, they said I need to go on iron pills for about a month, which I did. I forgot to show you, this is the It Cosmetics. It is my absolute favorite mascara in the whole world. Like, nothing comes close to this. While I was in the hospital, this is kind of like where it gets emotional. I'm not gonna cry right now because I did plenty of crying my first 2 weeks, which I'll get to in a minute. But I had a goal of breastfeeding. That was part of my plan. That was part of my vision. What? Oh, I thought Adam was talking to me. I always had a vision of breastfeeding. And I just thought breastfeeding comes natural to people. I just thought, hey, I want to breastfeed. I'm going to be able to breastfeed. It's going to be super, super easy. It wasn't. I ended up, like I said, hemorrhaging. And I don't know if this is the exact reason. There are so many things that could like limit why a mother can or cannot breastfeed, but one of the big things that I hear is if you do hemorrhage and you lose a lot of blood, it could limit your milk supply. Well, my milk didn't come in almost at all, like almost at all. It was really, really bad. I was getting almost nothing when I was trying to feed Landon. And it was, honestly, breastfeeding is the most emotional thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. It is, people don't prepare you for this at all. And again, I'm not gonna cry because I'm like all cried out over it. I cried for so long and for so many days about breastfeeding. And it's just hard. For some people it comes easy. For me, it's hard. It still is hard. You're just on demand all the time. And my milk didn't come in, so it took so much longer. I mean, long story short, I'm not gonna do my whole like breastfeeding journey because it's emotional, it's long. It was hard. It's very hard. It still is hard to this day. It's gotten so much better, but it still is extremely hard. We had to see lactation consultants. I had to do all these things to try to like produce more milk. I had to pump after every single time that I fed Landon, and I was feeding him like 10 times a day. The reason why they wanted you to pump so much is so that your milk can kind of like, you can trick your body that it needs to make more milk. It took just about a month for it to actually start to regulate, a month. And again, I'm gonna be honest with you, I cried pretty much every single day for 2 weeks. Now that I'm saying that, I also want to mention that people don't really prepare you for what's gonna happen when you go home. Nobody tells you that having a baby is going to make you the happiest you've ever been. It can also make you like the saddest that you've ever been. And I personally didn't know what baby blues were until I did like some research on it. When I came home from the hospital, I was just feeling really, really sad inside, and I didn't understand how I could feel so sad and be so happy at the same time. Like, I just had a baby, and how can I just be like, how can I be sad right now? Like, what is making me so sad? Well, I did a lot of research, and it turns out that baby blues is like, it's a real thing, and I experienced it. Fortunately, they say it should last just about like 1 to 2 weeks. Some people only get it for like a couple of days. I got it for like a solid 2 weeks. I just didn't feel like myself. I was like hurting inside. I was really sad. And I just, look at my roots right now. I'm getting my hair done tomorrow actually, but the roots are bad. But yeah, I just felt really sad inside. And luckily within that 2 week time frame, I felt better. It was like 2 weeks and 1 day, and I started to feel better. And I thank God every single day that it was just the baby blues, because they say if it lasts longer than that, then you could be like a candidate for postpartum depression. For me, it only lasted about 2 weeks, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I couldn't breastfeed. I think the best thing, well, I could breastfeed, but it was really, really hard. We're also supplementing with formula. We still do give formula once in a while when we feel like Landon needs it. So I think the best thing for me was when I figured out that, hey, if you can't breastfeed and you have to formula feed, that's okay. So nothing that I was against formula feeding before, because I was formula fed. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think a fed baby is a happy baby, and as long as you're doing whatever you can to make sure that your baby is healthy and happy and growing and thriving, that's all that matters. But when I finally decided like, hey, breastfeeding might not work out for you and you might have to formula feed, and that's okay, that's when I started feeling much better. Long story short, I just kept on with it, kept on trucking, and breastfeeding has gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better, and now we're here. Landon is going to be 7 weeks old tomorrow, and I don't get how he's already going to be almost 2 months old. It is so true what they say. Like, once you have a baby, that's when you realize like how fast time will fly by. And that's where we are right now. I just feel like every day is a precious moment with us, and I'm just trying to soak it all in. We're at the point now where Landon is like getting such a little personality, and it's so much fun to watch. Jax is freaking out right now. I think that the mail lady is at our door losing his mind. But yeah, I'm soaking it all in. I'm loving it. He's getting such a personality. He just smiles all the time now. He's like gurgling, and it's really, really fun. If you guys are new here, I'm just gonna end with this. I appreciate you guys watching. This is just my story. My story is pretty good, I have to be honest with you. I had a couple ups and downs, some things that were really tough to like deal with, and then I had other things that were just absolutely so easy and so beautiful. But it's just my story. It's one story. Everybody has completely different stories. I don't know. I just think it's the best thing in the entire world. This is the advice that I'm going to kind of like end this video with, and then I'll just finish doing my hair and do an outro. But one of the best things that I did, living in a world where social media is just so prevalent and everybody's on their phones all the time, me included. I'm on my phone a bunch and I'm trying to get better at it. One of the best pieces of advice that I can possibly give, and one that I'm giving to all my friends who are pregnant right now, is to check off your phone almost completely when you have your baby. I checked out of my phone for almost an entire week. I literally did a social media hiatus, went off of it. Even with my like family and friends, I just checked off my phone. If I had to get in touch with somebody, I mean, obviously if like my parents called or like friends would call, I would talk to them, but I didn't go on social media for an entire week. I just completely checked out and I lived in the moment, and I am so proud that I did that, and I can't express how much I think everybody should do that when they first have a baby. Live in the moment, because you are really never going to get those moments back. You'll never get those moments back. Social media will come and go. But one of the best things I did was just to check off of social media. I think it was like a week and a half, maybe a week or a week and a half. And I just checked off completely, and I just lived in the moment, and it was glorious. It was the best break ever. And I just got to soak in every little last second. So that's my birth story. I'm going to finish straightening my hair, and then I'll be right back for an outro. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it was kind of interesting and maybe beneficial for somebody who is about to give birth themselves. If you guys have a similar story or you would like to share some of your story in the comments, I would love to read them. I'm obsessed with watching these birth videos and seeing how other people's labor and delivery went. So yeah, if you would like to share your story or part of your story in the comments, feel free. I would love to read up on them. I'll be right back. And that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys watched this entire video, give yourself a pat on the back. I feel like I just rambled for like 40 minutes, and I also feel like I missed like a million parts of my whole birth story. A lot of it is just a blur because, again, I was just trying to live in the moment and soak up every single little last second with Landon, that I kind of just forgot a lot of it and just remember being with my son. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Two things to mention. First and foremost, I did go for my follow-up checkup routine visit with our doctor, and I am cleared for physical activity. I can start exercising again and start doing more physical things, which is really exciting because that means I can start doing more DIY videos and do more tasting videos and vlogs type videos. So I'm looking forward to filming some of those in the very near future. Thank you guys for all of your patience while I have been recovering. I really appreciate it. Second thing, most of you guys already know this, but if you guys are new here and you're wondering why I didn't have Landon in this video, I feel like I have to say in all of these videos for the next like couple of videos, because I'm just nervous I'm going to get hate. But if you guys are wondering why Landon is not in this video, not on my YouTube channel, or not in any of my Instagram posts, Adam and I, my husband and I, decided to keep Landon off of social media. We made a conscious decision to just keep him off the internet as much as we possibly can. We do have a private account for him for our family and friends, but as for like the public, we did make a very conscious decision to just keep him off social media altogether. The internet is a very scary place. The internet is forever, and we just decided that it wasn't for us to put him on Instagram or on social media right now. Maybe when he gets older, if he decides, hey, I want to go on social media, then we'll put him on. But for now, for the foreseeable future, he's just not going to be on social media, and we really hope that everybody understands. For the most part, you guys have been so supportive of that. I have gotten a couple of hate comments about it, but I accept it and we're moving on. Again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate support. I love you to the moon and back. I hope you're having an amazing start to your summer, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Bye guys.